Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Mr. Honeya here with day 2 of Distance Learning for Human Development. And you know what day it is?
It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend.
That's right, it's Friday. We all know on Friday we got to rep the Trojan gear. All right, so first off, good first day of distance learning. Can't complain overall. It was good. Many of you reached out. Was checking my email a lot. You guys were sending me comments, questions, everything that you needed. So overall, it's good. The one thing I do want to go ahead and make mention of is all of these assignments are going to be located in the modules section of Canvas. So it's the modules section of Canvas. So if you check that, you'll actually see that you'll have like different days. So it'll be like day 1, day 2, and then I'll open those up on a daily basis. And then as you continue to go through that, you can go ahead and get those questions answered, get those assignments knocked out. And for the most part, it goes in sequential order. So if you just go ahead and do it, you'll have all of the day's tasks completed. So for today, what we got going on is we're going to be looking at brain development and looking a little bit at adolescent decision making, continuing along. So you do have a set of notes today, but yeah, that's pretty much it. We got a set of notes, a little small assignment, and how about we have class inside of a violin today? Hello! How are you? Yes, having class inside of a violin because this looks like a classroom or fancy apartment that I can never afford. So, let's go ahead get started with these notes. Alrighty. So, we're going to be talking about brain development today because honestly, this is a very interesting time for many of you in adolescence because this is the part where your brains are also doing a lot of changing and developing, due to puberty and just the time of your life that you're in. All right, so the adolescent thought process. Well, the first thing that you want to look at and the first thing that you want to make note of is that adolescents are able to come up with multiple answers to open-ended questions. So, for example, yesterday when y'all had y'all's little sleep letter assignment, it wasn't just as simple as, we can push back the start times to get more people to sleep. Some of y'all were also suggesting, having a school mandated nap time, having school mandated nap time. Some of y'all have made suggestions about, homework loads and stuff. So y'all had more time to sleep instead of having to work on homework. So, there's multiple answers to that question of how do we allow you guys to get more sleep? So, moving on. Adolescents also exhibit what is called the personal fable. And this is where a lot of times, and you will see it, that we have students that will distort or inflate their opinions of themselves and of their own importance and abilities. So the idea, for example, I'm going to be a superstar. We all know that one person who thinks they can rap, who thinks they can sing, who thinks they are the bomb at sports, and they think they're either going to go pro or be, on television, have major record deals, all this kind of stuff, when in reality, they can't rap on beat. They make Blueface sound like he can rap on beat. They basically can't carry a tune in a bucket. They can't sing on tune to save their lives. And then on top of that, in terms of sports, like, for example, they don't do anything to make sure that they're actually getting any playing time. They're not doing things to take themselves to the next level in other words, to get to college and pro athlete. So, basically they've got this idea in their head that they're going to be this amazing person, that they have this great ability, when in reality, no, not really. And this is all like a fable. They're telling themselves a personal fable about themselves. So that's going to be one of the major elements that you will have to know for your mini quizzes and eventually down the road test. So then also there is this idea that adolescents believe they are invincible. And the reason this is, and I'll explain it later, but basically this leads to high risk taking decisions. So for example, if you get mad at someone and, rather than thinking, okay, if I deck this person in the face, what's going to happen afterwards? Am I going to get an assault charge? Am I going to get in trouble with my parents? Am I going to get suspended from school? Versus, that's going to be So it's not going to be that way of thinking automatically. That's a high risk taking behavior. So a lot of times you may think like you're not thinking about what's going to happen to me. You're thinking about living life in the moment and what joys you get from that. So if it makes you feel good when someone makes you mad to deck someone in the face, you might do that. Not saying that is right, but just wanting to reiterate that adolescent behavior tend to think that they're invincible. They don't think about things beyond of how they're feeling in the moment. So your adolescent thought process. Another one is called the imaginary audience. And basically what this is constant feelings of being watched or judged, thinking that everybody is looking at me. And this is oftentimes why you see a lot of adolescents focus in with their identity, wanting to have the best shoes, wanting to have the best clothes, wanting to make sure that they're not getting embarrassed, because they don't want people to look at them a certain way, and they want to keep up their reputation. So a lot of times going with that imaginary audience, they're constantly thinking, oh, I don't want to be perceived as different than the idea of what I want to be, that I want to project. So that is another big aspect of the imaginary audience. So looking at brain development. Brain development is at its peak during adolescence. There's a lot going on. Brain is developing like crazy. But the big thing that you want to make sure to also note here, and this is just a side note from the notes itself, is that, brain development is at its peak, and the only other time it's really at this peak of any sort of level is during infancy. So, when you're a baby and you're born and you're starting to grow, that's when your brain is starting to develop, when you're younger years, and then it kind of picks up again during adolescence. So, one of the major reasons, or one of the major areas of the brain that actually develops is what's called the amygdala. And this is part of the brain that is responsible for emotional reactions. So this honestly develops fast, and it's one of the first parts to develop within the brain. We did a sub-assignment a while back where you guys watched the videos about how the brain develops. And as you notice, the brain actually develops from the back to the front. And the amygdala is actually located like right around this part of your brain. So if it's developing from the back to the front, obviously it's developing from the back to the front. It's going to hit that amygdala first before it covers everything else. So once again, it's developing fast. And then since it's responsible for emotional reaction, this explains why teenagers tend to use a lot of emotions in decision making. As I used from that example earlier, if someone makes you mad and it's going to make you feel good to deck them in the face, that's one of the reasons why. Because you feel that need to release that stress, to express your anger, and then on top of that, I guess will feel good about decking someone in the face. Once again, I'm not encouraging that, but once again, there's a lot more decision making based on emotion. The other part of the brain that's very important to note is the prefrontal cortex, which is more along the lines in the front part of the brain. So as you said, we develop from the back to the front. Here we have the amygdala, and then we're having this part of the prefrontal cortex that is begin to developing slowly. So this is actually responsible for regulating emotions and planning, and this explains why teenagers are also very impulsive. Because if you think about it, you got the amygdala, and it's just going haywire, okay? It is just going haywire. It's like, oh my Lord, I'm feeling this way emotionally. I'm feeling mad. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling happy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to make a decision based off that. Your prefrontal cortex is oftentimes the part of the brain that's like, hold up, let's stop. Let's think about this, all right? If we act or make this decision, what is going to come from it? And since it's developing slowly, you don't have oftentimes that part in the front of the brain that says, hold on, let's stop, let's think about this. In other words, for example that I've been using, hold on, let's stop, let's think about this. If you deck this person in the face because they made you mad, what's going to come of it? Are you going to get in trouble? Are you going to get an assault charge? Are you going to get ISS, OSS? Are your parents going to get mad at you? Your administrators? How is this going to make this person feel that made you angry? So once again, you don't really have that part that's really developing at a super fast rate like your amygdala. So oftentimes that explains why you have that sort of impulsive decision making. Now, am I saying this is an excuse to make poor decisions? Absolutely not. You need to actually practice and get used to, thinking more about how people are going to feel, thinking more about how decisions are going to affect you in the long run. But I'm just stating from a psychological perspective, from a brain development perspective, this is where we're at. So continuing along with brain development, there's also two more areas that I want to address. They are synaptic pruning and myelination. And this is very important to think about. So first you have synaptic pruning, which is basically killing off connections in the brain that are not used. So basically when you have the ability to do something, and everything that you do is controlled by the brain. And when you have the ability to do something and you practice at it and you get used to it, or you practice at it and you work hard and you become better at it, eventually the connections in your brain that allow you to do that are going to get stronger. With pruning, what happens is if you don't use it, you lose it. So in many instances, you have that idea where these connections are starting to get killed off, and they're making room for more of, I guess you could say making room, but they're basically allowing for the stronger connections to take place. So you start to lose some of that ability, not necessarily some of that ability, but you start to lose a lot of those connections. And that's one of the reasons, like we tell you all the time, to make sure that you're, staying sharp, practicing things, being involved, because you're experimenting and you're having that idea of developing these connections. Next, we have myelination, which is where we are making these used connections stronger and faster. So in other words, this is why we have you guys practice, do things over and over. Whenever you go and you play basketball and stuff, you run drills and do all this stuff, because you make connections in your brain, and the more and more you do it, the stronger and faster they become, to where your recall is faster, your muscle memory is faster. And this is also one of the things that we want you guys to be in, why we kind of want to, in my opinion, we want you guys to be involved in school and activities and stuff to figure out what you're good at. So that way, if you figure out what you're good at, what you love to do, and you constantly practice it, then you're going to develop those connections as you continue to go through school, and eventually get that sort of practice in and start developing skills, start developing thought processes that are a lot quicker and more useful for you. All right, so at this time we're going to wrap up the notes, and we're going to be continuing along with your assignment for today. Going to be a very, very easy assignment, very simple, more reflective, less about right and wrong answers. So for today, you're going to be talking about reflective decision making, just kind of thinking about your own decisions that you've made. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to actually consider two decisions that you've made in the past couple of weeks, a good one and a bad one, and then you're going to submit to Canvas talking about the decisions and your thought processes behind them. And then for each decision, you're going to be talking about the following. So the first thing is you're going to give a brief story about the decision that you had to make, and make sure it's an appropriate decision. Make sure that this is an appropriate, school appropriate decision, even if it's a bad one. So there's that. Next, you're going to write about what influenced your choices, whether that be your own thought processes. It could be anything. Your thought processes, how you were feeling, your friends, your family, what influenced your choices and how. And then you're going to write about how it positively or negatively impacted you or someone else. So, did you get in trouble off this bad decision, or, did you make a good decision to help someone out, but in the end it kind of hurts you inside because maybe, they didn't appreciate the decision that you made to help them. So you're going to be writing a little bit about how this decision positively or negatively impacted them and yourself as well. And then finally, what could you have done to better handle the situation? So maybe it was a decision that was made on impulse, and you wanted to talk a little bit about what you could have done to better handle the situation. So that is what we've got going on. Very simple, very easy. Go ahead, start with the assignment, write it out on paper, take a picture of it, and send it to mrhoney@gmail.com if you don't have the assignment in Canvas. But this concludes today of e-learning, distance learning, whatever you want to call it. And I will see you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekend.